Aaron Rodgers tells the Pittsburgh Steelers that he will fly to Pittsburgh tomorrow to sign ahead of mandatory practices next week. So I guess he could change his mind, like he's nuts, like something crazy could happen. Probably not, though. We can operate under the assumption that Aaron Rodgers signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers tomorrow, that he's going to be on the practice field next week, and that he will be Pittsburgh's starting quarterback when they begin the season, week 1, on the road at his former team, the New York Jets. Oh, my God. I'm just like, how much do you love it? Seriously. When I say that, how excited do you get? Like, all this stuff going on in the world of sports is amazing. We love sports. We love the Stanley Cup Finals. We love the NBA Finals. There's nothing like the National Football League. I'm more excited for Steelers-Jets at the beginning of September than I am for Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. And I'm really excited for Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals because this ish is absolutely the best. And now that Aaron Rodgers is finally signed, we can have a conversation about what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be this season. And I guess it's really not that much of a surprise. You know, it's possible that Rodgers could have thrown a curveball to everybody, but everything Pittsburgh did throughout this offseason kind of like led all of us to believe, and we were all operating under the assumption, and the betting market's been operating under the assumption, that Rodgers would be their quarterback. You know, don't make a move in free agency other than to bring Mason Rudolph back. Pass on Shedeur Sanders like 9 times in the NFL draft. Not taking a quarterback before they draft Will Howard to fill out the room. It was never going to be Mason Rudolph. And the betting market knew this because the Steelers' win total would never have been 8.5, even though it's juiced to the under, would never have been 8.5 if Mason Rudolph were going to be the starting quarterback. The Steelers would never have been 3-point road favorites at open at the New York Jets if we thought Mason Rudolph seriously was going to be the quarterback of the Steelers. The assumption all along has been that Aaron Rodgers would be the quarterback of the Steelers, and now he will be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And in years past on the show, when our buddy Ken Barkley did the show with me, when we would do our NFL previews every summer, you know, a pretty fun exercise that you don't need to be able to code to do or have an Excel spreadsheet to perform. It's really easy. It's something that's really elementary that any sports fan can do with a rudimentary knowledge of the National Football League. And it goes like this. Head coach, quarterback, win total. Say them all out loud and ask yourself, does it make sense? For example, Mason Rudolph, Mike Tomlin, 8.5. Does that make sense to anybody? Of course not. Of course it doesn't make sense. It makes no sense for that win total to be 8.5. You can go to Buffalo, where it's Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, 11.5. That makes sense. Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh in the same range. That makes sense. So I'm going to do this now, and I want everybody to think about it for a second. You ready? Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin, 8.5, juiced under. Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin, 8.5, juiced under. Does that feel right to everybody? Does it feel correct? After last year, the win total was also 8.5, and that was Mike Tomlin, Justin Fields / Russell Wilson. And the Steelers went over the win total. When I say out loud, and when I think about, and I hear Rodgers, Tomlin, 8.5, my thought is, and it's a strong thought, over. To finish above 500. Where Mike Tomlin has lived in the land above 500 for the duration of his coaching career, which started in 2007. Almost 20 consecutive years of never finishing below 500. And you can't go 8-8 anymore. You're either above or you're below 500. And I've talked with people about it this offseason, about Rodgers versus Russell Wilson, like when the Giants were courting Aaron Rodgers, and then obviously they don't want to wait around for him and they sign Russell Wilson. I'm on record saying I think Aaron Rodgers is way better than Russell Wilson, even though Aaron Rodgers is currently older than Russell Wilson. I think Rodgers is way better than Russell Wilson. I think Aaron Rodgers is way better than Jameis Winston. And I'll tell you who else Aaron Rodgers is way better than. And I don't think it's close, and I think it'll manifest itself coming up in week number 1. He's way better than Justin Fields. Now, Aaron Rodgers is not the multiple-time MVP award winner that he was even early in his career. He's not the quarterback that he was in 2010 when the Packers went 10-6. They were the 6th seed and buzzsawed through the playoffs en route to a Super Bowl championship. This isn't the two-time MVP from a couple years ago under Matt LaFleur. Like, that's not what this is. He's a little older. Tore his Achilles a couple years ago. But what we saw last year at the end of the season and at points last season showed that Aaron Rodgers is still a capable NFL quarterback. I'm not going to put him in the same breath as Mahomes and Allen and Lamar and Burrow and Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, like the elite of the elite, Matthew Stafford. I'm not going to put Rodgers in that company. I'm not going to do that. But to suggest that Rodgers is no longer capable of being a starting quarterback in the NFL is ridiculous. And the thought that Aaron Rodgers can't win 9 games with the Steelers, with that defense, and how the offense with Arthur Smith is going to, and I don't like Arthur Smith, but that offense is going to protect Aaron Rodgers. This isn't going to be like what happened last year with the Jets, who are an absolute clown show organization, and I still have egg on my face, and I'm still counting the lost money from the bets on the Jets from the start of the season with their ridiculously coordinated and run offense and the ridiculous play calls on offense, and Robert Saleh, who is overmatched as a head coach, and I like him as a DC in San Francisco, but an overmatched head coach. Aaron Rodgers can definitely get the Steelers to 9 wins. A legitimate number 1 wide receiver in DK Metcalf. I love the running back that they took in the 3rd round, Caleb Johnson. And don't believe me? Ask the tape bros. They're going to tell you they love Caleb Johnson also. Multiple tight ends that can catch the ball. And with Aaron Rodgers, and we think about how many years we saw this in Green Bay, where Rodgers was able to take wide receivers that might not be the most talented and elevate them and make them better. And make them a little bit better. I think this is going to go pretty well in Pittsburgh. Now, don't confuse pretty well with win the Super Bowl. That's not going to be my suggestion. And I'm also not going to make the case that the Steelers are better than the Baltimore Ravens, who I think are going to be the class of the AFC North for as long as Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh are there. I don't think the Steelers are going to be better than the Ravens. I think they definitely have a chance to be better than the Bengals with Zach Taylor and that defense, and maybe Al Golden fixes the defense. I'm not convinced of that. The Steelers were going to be better than the Browns, even though I love Kevin Stefanski and I like some of the pieces on defense. The Browns I don't think are going to be trying to win this year with the way they've kind of like the run out in the NFL draft and how they've set it up for next year with multiple first-round picks in a draft with better quarterbacks. I think Cleveland has kind of telegraphed its intentions. Pittsburgh is no worse than the 3rd best team in its own division, maybe the 2nd best team in its own division. Mike Tomlin, legit head coach. Legit leader, unlike what Rodgers had with Robert Saleh in New York. I think this is going to go well. I think this team's winning at least 9 games this year if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. I still think that Aaron Rodgers can get it done. Not to win 15 games, not to play on Championship Sunday, not to win the Super Bowl, but to go above 500? Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you what else. Week 1, Steelers at Jets. At BetMGM, the Steelers are a flat 3-point favorite, 3 minus 110 at the Jets. Jets plus 3 minus 110. At other domestic sports books right now, because I looked at them because I wanted to see, the betting action is, and it's June, and I understand that. We have a lot of time to go. the juice is towards the Jets. And things can obviously change. Players can get injured. I'm just saying that that's what's happening right now. Are the Steelers going to cover the spread on the road at the Jets in week 1, assuming like their principal players on both teams are healthy? Are they going to cover the spread? Maybe. I'll tell you what, though. The Steelers are not losing that game. The Steelers will not lose that game at the Jets in week 1. That is going to be Steelers money line, either straight, Steelers money line parlayed with others, or both. Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin are not losing at Justin Fields in week 1 of the NFL season. No way, no how. For sports bettors, I think the Aaron Rodgers signing in Pittsburgh is going to provide us with an opportunity where the betting market is still down on this team. So for sports bettors, I think this is awesome. If you're a Steelers fan, though, I could certainly understand you being upset with this news. Because while I think the Steelers can go 9-8 or 10-7 and get into the playoffs, maybe the 6th seed, maybe the 7th seed, they've got no shot of competing for a Super Bowl, which is the point of this whole thing. So I think, this is a double-edged sword. For Steelers fans, I could see you being upset. You'd rather take a quarterback. Like, I think if I'm a Steelers fan, I'd rather have Jackson Darton roll the dice and see if he's any good and see if the upside can get you there one day. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has that upside as Steelers starting quarterback this year, but I think the upside is there for the Steelers to go over their win total, to beat the Jets in week 1, and win us some bets. Also, by the way, Steelers and the Packers later in the year, Steelers at the Bears later in the year. You'll love to see it.